Welcome back to our show, Empower Your Life. I'm your host, Cindy Marie. Our next guest is an impact-driven entrepreneur, so passionate about sustainability and building tech for good businesses. He has co-founded 3 companies across Asia and Europe, and currently the co-founder of Green Collective Singapore, a venture builder for sustainable D2C or direct-to-consumer, brands career-rated based on UN Sustainable Development Goals, which we are going to cover that further on this episode. So without further ado, may I welcome to you our next guest, Mr. Mayur Singh. Hi, Mayur.
Hi, so nice to finally be here.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I know it's late there. And you're still also recovering. So thank you so much for being part of this Empower Your Life show. So how are you doing?
Good. Much better, like you said, recovering. It's not recovering from COVID. It's actually recovering from a minor foot injury. Good. I mean, life in Singapore has been a big balance in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. But it's also been a big realization for everyone around the world, not just in Singapore, about the need to know what our needs are versus wants. I feel that's the way I like to look at it. And living through building Green Collective, building a lot of things around sustainability, which I'm passionate about. So couldn't complain more.
Awesome. So since you mentioned that, for a lot of viewers and listeners, of course, for us to get to know you further, can you share with us the story of how everything started with becoming so involved with sustainability and also so passionate about, building business for good and being part of the co-founder of the Green Collective Singapore? So share with us.
No, definitely. I think the joke that my friends would say is that I'd done almost 10 to 12 years of investment banking and then worked in palm oil industry. So in order to repent for my sins, I had to work on sustainability. But jokes apart, I spent a lot of my career gathering skill sets in corporate world. And somewhere deep down, there was always a desire to kind of work on businesses which can combine impact, technology, as well as sustainability into it. And how do you work on that? So I think 5 years back, I found that to be my kind of an ikigai, wherein I could find my sweet spot. And for me, that was that, can we do and innovate on business models around sustainability, tech, and impact measurement? So these 3 parameters is what I wanted to dabble with and work in spaces where impact is high and scalable, while on the other hand, we do solve very day-to-day problems for people. I mean, there are people looking at hydrogen as the next fuel, solar as the next fuel, and they're doing some great work across the world in climate tech. But for me personally, the satisfaction always has been in working with people and to be able to see the impact of lives being changed on both sides of the work. So that's where I kind of started from. I'm a big passionate lover of social impact, and as the academic interest or a lot of interest from the geeky side comes in understanding bottom of the pyramid and how does it work differently from a lot of things that happen in big cities and within what would be called top of the pyramid or the richer or upper middle class in different countries. So the first platform that I actually built was a platform which connected indigenous people in Asia with consumers of the products that they made by hand. So we were trying to basically build a model through which artisan economy, the social entrepreneurs working on the ground with them, could be connected to consumers. So that's what we were doing. And I think that's the idea that I started with, which eventually got modified to what is Green Collective today. And that's been the journey. In the middle, I built a fintech focused in Europe and all. But this is a topic. Asia is very close to my heart. It will always be, because this is where I've lived and this is where I've got everything from. So this is where I really wanted my impact also to be. So So yeah, and then while working on the artisanal platform, we started Green Collective around three and a half years back. And one big pain point that I saw when I was doing the artisanal startup, when we did like a lot of these weekend markets, pop-up markets and festivals, and I met some amazing friends and amazing entrepreneurs who were really, really doing good stuff and really doing good work. The challenge, however, was that if we looked at how the market is today and how do you need to get a D2C brand beyond online into actual supermarket shelves, the route was very tough if you were not someone who came with very good venture capital connections or a lot of money from family and all. So the route was very tough for someone who's talented but doesn't really get the required funding. The required funding.
Yeah.
So and the fun part was there were a lot of these people, and not surprisingly, and talking about underfunding, most of them were women, right? Because we don't think and we don't fund women enough today. So, so what we did was we were like, okay, let's look at Green Collective. And the whole idea behind Green Collective was that how can we actually create a new way of becoming some kind of a bridge through which these brands could go through, and that bridge will connect them to the actual market. So what that actually means is, and that's why Green Collective is a very unique model, because yes, to a consumer, we look like a retail store, which has an online presence, offline presence, sells in multiple things. But what's actually happening is to each and every brand that goes through the Green Collective is actually going through a process. And what we managed to do in the last 2 to 3 years is this, that not just that we have our own store, our own presence within Singapore, but we also actually work very closely with Fair Price, which is one of the largest supermarkets in Singapore, and curate sustainability related categories and products for them. So we are able to get these brands a space on supermarket shelves which they had never got before. And that is what we wanted to actually create with Green Collective, because one thing personally that really, really pinched me in my initial entrepreneurial journey was that sustainability was just not inclusive enough. It was expensive. Products were really, really expensive. Products were meant to be bought by a certain class of society. And those products are made by a certain class of society. And there's this big divide between them always. And on top of that, it was not inclusive also in terms of the entrepreneurs it supported. So that's the vision that we've been working with, to kind of create this ecosystem through which these entrepreneurs can actually start accessing main markets. And that's what Green Collective actually looks to do.
Yes. So while you're explaining the sustainability inclusive, I think one of the opportunities or the advantages, the positive sides of COVID is actually that's the awakening, you know, like suddenly people becoming more conscious, more conscious about spending, about the food that they eat. And I think you would agree with me that in the beginning, of course, the lockdown was a challenge because you are a retail, right? But that's the uniqueness of that as well, is that you are actually promoting related to sustainability, which is a very close to what is happening right now. So can you share, since you mentioned that it's very unique, the Green Collective, right? I'm sure that there's a high increase in terms of customers you're getting right now, and there will be a lot of also exposure because a lot of people are doing referral as well. Can you share with me on how the changes, the improvement of Green Collective from the start from the beginning of this business to now, and how a lot of people in Singapore can make an impact to support these brands in Singapore, and hopefully maybe in other Asian countries?
No, definitely. And I think talking about COVID and COVID trends, I'll get into that. But COVID was a big shock for Green Collective, to be really honest with you. because when COVID struck, we didn't even have a website. So, and in Singapore, I think it was April 2020 is what I want to say. Yeah, April 2020. So April to June 2020, there was almost a 2-month complete shutdown. And we've always had a very interesting aspect of Green Collective, which is now known to many more people in Singapore, is that we've always said that we're building a responsible kampung. So for those of you not familiar with the term, kampung essentially is a village in Malay. The whole idea behind it was that while we are doing all of this strategic thing of taking people to supermarkets, what is my governance structure? How am I actually different? How am I actually different from a cutthroat profit-making enterprise? And that's where we took a lot of inspiration from how villages run and how cooperatives run in villages. And we embedded those principles into Green Collective. What that meant is this, that when we started Green Collective, and even today, brands actually do cashiering. Each and every brand plays a very integral role in running the collective. In return, the collective gives them a monthly town hall where they can come and ask us questions. There is complete transparency on what happens, especially in the retail store level. So there is a proper stakeholder alignment that happens. And these are the things, talking about COVID and talking about solidarity. We had 0 brands that left us, because we do charge them a fixed amount as well in addition to the variable. We of course lowered that because our running expenses were lower. We didn't take salaries and all. But
Singapore is expensive by general. So
yeah, almost. Yeah. But yeah, but yeah, I think that was a big part about who we are, which actually held us through that part. The second pleasant shock was that so COVID hit. We had no plans to build a website. So we were like, okay, what do we do? So we were like, instead of looking at trying to build a website, which would not make sense in the long run, because we would have just put all the products in it. It was very tricky even to go to a mall, because you had to take permission, get it certified. So it was not easy to do. So we did a very simple thing. We trusted our customers. All we did was we said, okay, one big problem, and I don't know if you remember, but one of the biggest trends in the first wave of COVID was that everyone became a baker. Everyone was baking and putting it up on Instagram. So we were talking about it in one of the team meetings, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of food waste in Singapore. So we were like, okay, let's tackle food waste. We had this problem, which is called an urban composter, which can work in a Singaporean HDB home. And we put that up on a Google form, and we just sent that email to all our customers. And that sales is what actually saved Green Collective through that tough time, so that we could pay our dues. So it taught us to innovate, and eventually 3 months down the line, we launched a website and everything else was fine. But yeah, I think there are so many trends that have come out of COVID. I think realization is one of the biggest ones, that the planet we are living in is fragile, and it's made by us. It's very, very resilient, but it can also be fragile when it's not taken care of properly.
I think it's just like our human body. We are very resilient, but if we really don't care about it, then being resilient will be disappearing slowly. So
no, exactly. So I think that realization was huge. But just to share one story, that one change that we saw in consumers was, while everyone thinks, and which is a fact, that a lot of single-use plastic adoption increased during COVID because a lot of medical products and everything else. I think what's very important to remember is that when you're talking about sustainability, and this is to each and every one who's hearing, whether you're a consumer, whether you're an entrepreneur, the focus should be on how can I change the behavior, whether it is of self or whether it is of your customers, if you're trying to do a sustainability focused business. If you're trying to do more of the same and trying to basically make it convenient for the customer all the time, maybe you're not solving the problem. You're creating a larger problem. And that's a good way for any consumer to actually look at a product and whether that is actually and truly sustainable or not in the long run.
Well, I just want to cut you on that before you proceed, because I just remember the time that we talked first, the advertisement about this plastic.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I mean, I'm totally naive on that. I never come to know that. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. But this still is where we're heading. A lot of businesses and companies trying to make everything convenient, and this is why I think and I believe it's also difficult for most of the people out there. It's because we're so used to it.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think, I mean, just to give everyone a context, because that was a very interesting discussion that we both had. And I think it was almost 50, 60 years back. And it's a full page ad in Life magazine, which talks about how it's the launch of cellophane, if I'm not wrong, and single-use utensils. And it's celebrating the fact that you can now use and throw. Oh. And it's now convenient. So basically, if I remember, not verbatim, but basically the line is something to the extent that now the mother doesn't need to bother about washing. It's convenient. And I think convenience is still a big part of what we do. And that's why we do deliveries, which come with a lot of waste and everything else. But I think what's really important in today's world, and going to the second question that you asked, Cindy, about how can consumers do it, is firstly not to overwhelm yourself, because I think not one person alone cannot solve this problem. It's a problem that needs to be solved by societies, communities, nations, continents, and the entire world. But there's a lot of people who talk about atomic habits and tiny habits. And I find that beautiful, because it's actually an accumulation of many tiny habits that can lead to a sustainable lifestyle. So you can start as small as possible. The best example that I talk about is like from food perspective. I mean, if you are a heavy meat eater, give it up once a week. Start from there. And then you will automatically see a trigger effect happening, not just for you, but also for your whole family. A real example of this came in a Grab ride in Singapore that I was in. And the Grab driver was actually taking me to where Green Collective is, and in this mall called Funan. And he's like, oh, so what do you do? So we just got into a conversation about sustainability, this and that. So he's Singapore. So he's like, oh, so the sustainability. My daughter come one day from school, and she's like, Papa cannot eat meat. Let's stop once a week, because she must have read something. So I was like, oh, okay, let's try. So he's like, that was 2 months back, and now we're not eating meat thrice a day. So that's atomic or tiny habits, right? Basically, it brings about changes and behavioral changes in multiple ways. And I think that's essential for us to kind of move towards a larger and a better sustainable behavior overall, and a sustainable ecosystem overall. And because one question that always happens with sustainability is greenwashing. And if you're doing this, you will automatically not have an issue of greenwashing, because you moved from a state where you are creating, or our lifestyles are creating a lot of emissions, to a lifestyle where that emission is reduced. And eventually, as the whole system around you actually gets more sustainable, you can move to a carbon positive world overall.
So since you mentioned about this, making an impact, and it's let's be honest, we are not gonna have a zero plastic life. Plastic is everywhere. Here in Europe, it's common approach or common practice to separate things. So sometimes, or most of the times, I will feel bad about how much plastic, because we separate, right? How much plastic can fill up quickly compared to the paper and compared to the glasses. And despite of really reducing our not consumption, because it still goes to the packaging, right? But this is something that beyond our control. So since you mentioned about these atomic or tiny habits, and we talked about it earlier, that there are so many people out there always thinking about bigger step on how to practice a healthier and sustainable lifestyle, because we both practicing that. And the more that we think of, we want bigger steps, the more that we overwhelm, therefore we don't do it anyway. So if you can advise people out there, I think most of the Asian, unfortunately, we are not like embedding that approach yet, and having a trouble of practicing. What is your advice or two tips from home and work, just to have sort of tiny or atomic habits to live a healthier and sustainable lifestyle, that we will not be overwhelmed?
I think one basic thing, and I think I kind of referenced to it in the start of the conversation, is to kind of figure out what your needs and wants are. Like, forget about sustainability for a second, right? What do you need actually in order to live a fulfilling life, which is as per you? You, Cindy, or I cannot define what's it for a third person, and we should not. And be able to really, really distinguish it from what your wants are.
Can you elaborate that further? Because I think a lot of people would say, well, I know what I want and what I need, so how can I break it down more? So let's say when we are going to the grocery, right? And we know what we need and what we want. So we have, let's say, cereals, we have chips, we have desserts, we have vegetables, we have meat. So just given that example, what can we identify the need and wants?
So the needs are basically very simple and nutritional, right? So if you look at needs, in any meal, you need a mix of carbs, protein, and fiber. That's about it. That's literally about it. And your wants could be chips and snacks, which you will see are the products which are much more packaged, much more unnatural, right? Because they needed to be made. You needed to take the potatoes from one part of the world, take it to another part of the world, cut it into pieces, fry it, package it in third part of the world, and you bring it back to your part of the world. So inherently extremely, extremely inefficient systems which are used to make these products. And I think the wants basically are the things which we desire, but we don't really need them every day. That's a want. That's a clear want. Unless and until it's growing in your backyard, right? If it's cocoa is growing in your backyard, you have the skill of making chocolates, great, do that. So I think it has, and I know it's tough to do, because I mean, I'm also in the journey of doing it or trying to do it. But I think it's a very fulfilling journey which goes beyond sustainability, because it actually makes you realize who you are as a person. And that's actually and that's actually much more fulfilling than anything else. So I think that's a big framework. And I think it's if for a lot of parents out there, I mean, I heard this from the first time in one of these zero waste stores in Singapore called Unpacked. And the founder mentioned that whenever she takes her daughter there, she says that this is the money for you to do the needs. And then you have to come back and tell me what the wants are. So you can really train people early to kind of and you can give the wants, but make the person realize that this is coming at a cost to something in the ecosystem, which involves you. So it may be your health, or it definitely in most cases is the environment and the earth. So that's, I think, one thing to get very, very clearly out there. The second tip that I always say is, for a lot of Asian countries, I feel, is that a lot of the ancient technologies, the ancient wisdom that we have, and we don't respect it that much, to be honest. So do as what your grandma did is a very, very good and a simple principle. My grandfather carried a jute bag to market every day on a bicycle, brought back vegetables which were most probably cut that morning, in some little shop near the house. And that jute bag was like a hallmark of the house that I can remember now. And it's actually that simple.
I
And
think
that
we're actually bringing that back. We're becoming, or not becoming, but we are turning also back to basic.
Yep.
Ever since the COVID started, where all of this packing your meal and having, for example, transportation instead of car, if you can just do a bicycle or by walk. So I think that's also because a lot of people misunderstood that when you're practicing sustainability and healthier lifestyle, it has only to do with food. But there are so many aspects or actions that we can do, from walking to taking transportation, and also the electricity. So yeah, I think
everything can be sustainable. I just got my laptop, which I'm using right now, and it's one of the lowest carbon footprint laptops made by Dell. So there's an option everywhere. But we need to know that, like, we will all create footprint if we consume, like our chat currently has a footprint because somewhere some server is consuming some electricity. And if that's not renewable, it's a negative footprint on the planet. But I think that's why I will go back to the tiny habits part, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the monstrosity of the problem.
Right. Agree. It's just, I think for us, many people to think of what can I do to make an impact, it's actually starting from ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that how we take care of ourselves is, if we take care of our planet, therefore they're also going to take care of us, but we also going to take care of ourselves, then we can take care of outside, right? It's easier because if we, well, I hope that most of the people nowadays are more conscious in terms of lifestyle, that whatever they are right now, because of the COVID. Let's move back to the entrepreneur as your expertise, and still sticking with sustainability. So can you elaborate that how important it is to have, like, for business people out there or people who want to be an entrepreneur, business for good, so with sustainability? So how can you elaborate that further so we can understand? For example, I want to set up a business with a product. How can I have the combination of tech for good or with sustainability in it?
Yeah. I have two main tips that come to the top of my head, and I think because I'm trying to say things that you will not find when you Google it. This is real life lessons learned the hard way.
Love it.
One thing is not to fall in love with your passion. Okay? Passion is a great thing.
Oh.
But passion dies when you have to convert a business, which is tough to do when we do business for good. I think it's more, the word I like to use is more of a responsibility. You should feel responsibility towards the cause that you're trying to do. Because passion dies when you have to make money, and when you cannot pay your bills. Passion dies. Responsibility stays. Responsibility is to a craft, to a community, to a cause. And that will be very, very useful for you in order to be able to distinguish from creating solutions which can be big and impactful in multiple ways. So that's one thing that I would say to every entrepreneur out there. Second thing is this, that I think this is, again, I feel a lot of people get it wrong. It's a business with a purpose. While purpose has to be at the center, and you need to set up metrics, you need to set up very good governance standards so that the purpose is always met. Don't forget, it's a business with a purpose.
Yes.
Very often I meet entrepreneurs in this space who are doing great work. They're great human beings, great entrepreneurs, but they build for-profit companies, whereas their mindset is that of delivering value through a non-profit model. And there is nothing wrong with that. But it's just that you need to be clear about it, because tomorrow when you raise capital, do other things, people who fund a for-profit company are very different from people who fund a non-profit. So understand what you want to do and stay very true to yourself as an entrepreneur, because one of the fundamental things of entrepreneurship, and Cindy, you are an entrepreneur yourself, I mean, it's a lonely place. It's a very, very, very lonely journey. Whatever said and done, your partners will be around you, but at the end of the day, it's a lonely journey. And in that lonely journey, if you're not truthful to yourself about what you're actually doing, you are you're really lying to yourself.
Oh my God, I love it. I just want to add on that. For my 2.5 years of unemployed in a corporate job, I've been really thinking of what I want to do in my life, because I've been really enjoying working, but at the same time, I don't feel good anymore of coming back to the corporate world. If I'm going back there, I will make sure that I am picking the values and the purpose that aligning with mine. And you said it right, that you have to be true to yourself, because, a realization that came to me last year was, I don't want to add more products because there's just so many out there. I can't do business partner. And then I think of coaching business, and this is what I've been doing now, that I'm serving myself, I'm serving my time, and I'm helping people to transform life. And this is why also I'm having this Empower Your Life, because I want people to understand that being an entrepreneur, it's not an overnight success as well. And we have to be true to ourselves that, I have a big purpose on me. This is why I keep going. And my purpose is that bigger than myself. And just to add on that, I think, because sometimes, especially nowadays, everything is so easy access. Information, platform, software, and everyone wants to get it straight away. Right. And I think you have the best advice to give a lot of people out there, that it's not an easy peasy work.
Well, I think there's a book by Ben Horowitz talking about hard things about hard things. I think I would love to see much more books like that, which talk about it as is and doesn't sugarcoat it.
Yes.
Right, because it's tough. It's tough to manage it, and it's definitely very tough to grow it. And you have to be okay and be a bit eccentric in certain way, that you love facing problems. So, it's fun. I'll be lying if I say that I don't enjoy that, but you kind of get used to enjoying the chaos as an entrepreneur. But like what you rightly said, that I think, and that's where I feel that one of the conversation points that I feel is very important to talk about is mental health of entrepreneurs, and which is just such a neglected topic. And I think it comes from a lot of points that I think you put it much better than I did, that you have to be true to yourself. You have to be true to yourself through this ups and downs, the valley of death. I think there are 30,000 terms that are there in entrepreneurship, but none of them actually talk about who you are, and you should be truthful to yourself first. Forget about building a business. You will build a business, of course, but there are so many more things to it.
Yes, I think it boils down, to, by the end of the day, we are human being. We feel something. So even though you are already the CEO, the founder, you are famous people, whatever that can be, by the end of the day, we are still encountering almost the same. The only difference is that how we respond on that. And I totally agree when you said the mental health, but I'm very happy that it's slowly becoming part of conversation or topic.
Correct.
So, and I hope that a lot of people will be more, because also going to the vulnerability, it's not so easy to expose yourself when you're struggling, but you don't have to show yourself to the public. You can always show your struggles to your friends or family members. But the sad part is that even part of the family members or friends, we don't have that. We can't express. Do you agree on that, or?
No, I do agree. I mean, as close as you might be to your family or your partner or whoever's around you, it's tough for anyone to relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very tough for anyone to relate to what you go through. But I think, having said that, we all don't need to understand each other's problem 100%. But I think it's important to voice it out. As long as you have an outlet to voice it out, you should. But yeah, I think it starts with oneself. I personally believe that.
There you go. So being true to yourself, and things are not going to be easy, especially for entrepreneur. And you mentioned that having the purpose, always good to start with as an entrepreneur. Now we talked about the mental health, which is somehow related to my next question. That I love this question so much. I think I always learn something from all the guests that I have interviewed. The question is, how do you keep yourself optimistic?
I keep myself really occupied to be optimistic. No, so I mean, besides Green Collective, I invest in this space. I advise a couple of startups which don't really do what Green Collective does, but like in the climate tech space or sustainability space. I lead a nonprofit which is focused on plant-based living. So I do a lot. I do wear multiple hats. I think what keeps me optimistic is the fact that there's always this debate that who will solve this problem for the planet? Will it be businesses? Will it be people? And my answer is both, because I think the way the world we live in today, businesses or people are kind of intertwined with each other. So unless and until we were to go back into a complete different economic system by all of us sitting in a time machine quickly, we have to live with what we have. And in that system, I think people and businesses are so intertwined. And of course, the governments and the policy side
fall into people.
Yeah, but they fall into people, right? Because in most places in the world, they're elected by the people.
Yes.
So, so I think if I look at the power that actually people have to not just buy things, but also vote for parties, choose to invest their money wisely, and to do each and everything that they have, right? Or vote against products, boycott products, boycott brands, is just very, very, very powerful. And I mean, I've worked across Europe. So Europe, I think, is much, much more boycotts and everything else. But I think that change that people have shown is very, very encouraging. And I mean, just to share a small example with you, when we started the Green Collective, very small retail space at that point in time, for the first 6 months, I used to question myself as an entrepreneur. I was like, we're mainly selling straws. So, I mean, I was like, okay, we're actually getting straws to people who never used straws before. But right now, straws is kind of a proxy to be sustainable in the first wave of sustainability. But then magically, 1 year later, till now, one of our biggest selling products are actually in the menstrual healthcare category. And that's a very, very interesting trend for me personally, because in a very developed Singapore, it's still a taboo topic. People don't talk about it. Men don't know about it. We did a very funny video where we give menstrual
cup. I saw that. You guys interviewed the men.
Exactly. We interviewed the men and they came up with very, very wild ideas of what a menstrual cup can be. But very low awareness on the topic as such. But we've seen it that month on month, people are coming in, they're trying. People are now bringing their friends. People are gifting it to friends. And that is impressive to see, because you rightly pointed out, Cindy, that when we talk about sustainability, what we think about is what we put in our body as food. This is a much more intimate product. And if I am willing to convince my friend to do it or to get it, then actually things are changing, and things are changing very rapidly. So I think while sometimes being too close to the problem can make you really pessimistic and very negative minded. But if you deep dive, look into how you are able to create a change and draw gratification from that, then you start realizing that if you're honestly doing your work with your purpose in mind, you will be creating change.
You know, I don't know if you have realized that when I ask you the question and all you can think about being so positive to yourself is really serving yourself.
Yeah.
To these businesses. I love it. Like you're full on. You're present to contribute, to improve the best capacity that you have within technology and social impact and sustainability, and it makes you happy. I love it. Like, oh my God, you have so huge within you to offer, that this is what makes you happy. This is what makes you optimistic, is that little by little you see the progress of the baby that you're taking care of, which is one of those will be the Green Collective. And I'm sure over time that since with the change as well of our environment, Green Collective will be supported by a lot of people, and obviously even men now very welcome to offer themselves to understand, because it's true. I mean, there shouldn't be any embarrassment to discuss about this, because this is part of human being. This is part of women.
Yeah. I mean, I read an article somewhere, or I think it was a video, and it talked about how have we not thought enough about a problem that happens to 50% of the world every month for most of their life. Why have we not thought about that? But yes, we're really spending a lot of money to figure out how to go to Mars. Yeah. So I think that speaks volumes about us as a human race as well sometimes, right? So
I think it's because also there's a pros and cons with the technology, but one of the pros will be we are giving more access to understand the other things that we didn't understand before, that it should be taboo, but actually it's okay to be talked about. And it's also okay to share it to people. And it's also okay to behave or act on that, because we were just not being informed in a right way. And thankfully now, slowly but surely, that we have this, though it can be overwhelming because everywhere all information is available, it also becoming so overwhelming for a lot of people. But going back to the pros, and I believe that you're also an optimistic person, we always look for opportunities, because there's always opportunity. I always believe that in every challenging situation, there's always things that we can learn from, and there's always an opportunity, right?
No, definitely. I think you said it beautifully, that I mean, challenge has always presents opportunity.
Yes.
And that's how we have to view it. And I mean, when you're talking about me, like I said earlier, you have to be selfish. I think if you're selfish with a purpose, it's not a bad thing, because then you'll be true to yourself and you will actually do better for the world.
You will do it anyway.
Yeah. You will do it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
You will act on it. Well, perfect. All right, for everyone else that would love to get to know who is more about Mr. Mayur Singh, what are those other things that you do, and the charities or the nonprofit companies or organization you're supporting, and also Green Collective Singapore, where can we find Mr. Mayur Singh, and where can we find a Green Collective Singapore?
Well, Green Collective Singapore is, I mean, the flagship is in a mall called Funan. You can always go to, of course, our website. We also work with FairPrice. We are also on Red Mart. So we are there in multiple places in Singapore. The idea is to kind of get sooner, as soon as possible, which would be this year, to get it to many more Southeast Asian countries, and also looking at Canada. So we will get closer to you. And if you are someone who wants to build a Green Collective, please write a message to me on LinkedIn. I will respond to you, and we can get started on building a Green Collective.
Where they can find Mayur Singh on LinkedIn? What's your what do you handle or name over there? Mayur Singh.
Mayur Singh, yeah. It's
okay. Well, I'm gonna add that on my blog anyway. And the Instagram, do you have Instagram? Are you welcome from people to follow you, or just the Green Collective Singapore?
Follow Green Collective because I'm one of those who's on Instagram, but I'm non-existent because I'm always on the company account. So, awesome. So you will get a reply from me if you send a message to Green Collective, but if you send it to me,
it's Green Collective SG, right?
Green Collective SG, the Green Collective.sg.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, everyone. If you want to get to know more about Green Collective SG, just check it out, their website, and also follow their Instagram. And if you want to get to know more about entrepreneur or whatever that he's working on, technology and so on and so forth, if you're interested in, just message him on LinkedIn at Mayur Singh. Anything that you want to share, a message, powerful message to our viewers or listeners, just to make them feel like motivated with entrepreneur.
I think we're living in this very exciting time, right? COVID or not. I think it's such an exciting time because we can live in our rooms and with our screens and actually create very positive change. I think that's such a powerful thing that we have amongst us, which is why I love to see more and more entrepreneurs coming up, because actually it's one of the easiest times to be an entrepreneur, while it is a challenge, of course. But I feel that if you feel strongly about something, just drop what you're doing, spend a weekend and start working on it. Nobody will stop you. Everyone will help you. It's a much more collaborative world if you look for the right people. But don't curb your passion. Don't curb your passion. Just go for it.
Awesome. There you go. So I hope you feel motivated and inspired for those people who have their passion there, but just don't know how to act. What I will say on addition on that, just take one step, and then the rest of the house will figure things out on its own. So thank you so much, Mayur, with your time and for that very valuable information and sharing with us the Green Collective, the importance of sustainability, not only sustainability, but having a bigger purpose in life. So thank you so much. And everyone, don't forget to follow Green Collective Singapore or SG, and message Mayur at Mayur Singh on LinkedIn for any entrepreneur or anything that you're interested in to find more about him. And also don't forget to share this video so our website will grow organically, because we would love to provide you more episodes with all of these people like Mayur, with the expertise, with the entrepreneur or anything with mental health, everything. We would love to cover everything here to inspire and motivate you to where you want to be in the future or right now. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Cindy. Lovely chatting with you again.
Thank you. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy that interview, and I hope you find it inspiring and motivating. Remember, stay optimistic and keep taking action slowly but surely for your big dreams. Thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next episode here at Empower Your Life.